Space King is an absurd, over-the-top animated show done by the boys over at FlashGitz. It's an obvious parody of Warhammer 40K, sure, and while FlashGitz are often a little too crude for my taste, I enjoy the brunt, crass, dumb fun of Space King's over-the-top setting and characters. And the designs too. I love how chunky these guys are and how they're built to like Buzz Lightyear juicing on trim. And the helmets, I can't help but look at them and see a very pissed off frog. So naturally I had a dumb want to make the Captain, Bryce, Monger, and Chestnut into an actual set of models I could sneak into a Space Marines army. Granted, the more I think about it, these 4 dipshits might end up being sent to the Death Watch. Maybe one day I'll make a Death Watch army, but I have other things I'm working on later. Stay tuned if you want to see bug stuff.
There's so many bugs, there's so many of them.
Just to preface, I tried a number of cameras in this video. It's a first time thing for me, so I'm still trying to figure things out. At first I used my phone, then the webcam I ordered off of Amazon was a little too choppy and had a lot of digital artifacting in the video quality, and it kept resetting my settings between uses. But I figured out what was wrong with my phone and managed to jump back to it for a higher quality. So sorry if the video quality keeps changing. We'll start off with the man himself, the Captain.
Okay. Awesome.
Now for model, I chose the Captain with Power Sword because, well, I mean, it's a Captain. I also supplemented in the Ultramarines upgrade sprue purely for the Fan helmet. Firstborn helmets are a dying breed, and I wish GW would keep them around, since they are the iconic face of 40K for so long. But I guess it's the Primaris Power Hour. While I like the look of the Primaris helmets overall, the Psycho Warrior helmet is clearly based on the Firstborn helmets, and their angry Darth Vader looking Vox grill. I couldn't in good conscience put a smooth-faced Primaris helmet on these boys. It'd be like a Halo 4 or 5's helmet on the CE body. Sure you can, but it's just kind of wrong. I'd also purchased a set of Tactical Marines just for the helmets alone, and I didn't end up using them. Maybe later. Getting towards the belt and waistcloth while assembling him, I noticed this interesting little reliquary hanging from his belt. Part of me wanted to try and clip off the tabard and shave away until I had just that for Chestnut's globulus, but decided against it, taking the one from the Emperor's Champion figure I have for another project instead. I opted against using the cape and clipped away the iron halo, just to keep him as close to the original work as I can. I would later throw this idea away, realizing what I'd chosen for Monger was very, very extra. I kept gluing him together, drill a hole in his bolter so he can actually fire the thing, put that lovely head in place, gave him a spare shoulder from my bits box, glued him to the base, and set to work on the next figure. After making sure to give him his big grenade that I sourced from a spare from my Ogryn's kit. Up next, the Techma specialist, Bryce.
Hey Chestnut, you find any lumps while fondling my—
Bryce, being the tech man of the team, screamed Techmarine. I mean, how could he not? Fixes stuff, makes things work better. I could see him next to a Predator tank kicking it in the treads to give it that +1 to hit. Maybe to middling results. Granted, I had to do a little thinking on how to tweak him. We don't see him toting a huge axe like Techmarines do, but I figure a spare Hellblaster plasma gun would do the trick. It's a tight fit, but I want an excuse to practice the plasma coil glow. I had to snip away the shoulder nub from the torso and then do a little on the arm, so it sat flush. But it's a very nice bit of posing to make him feel a little more my own. The little metal tentacle was a bit snug around his arm. I almost debated if I should just leave it off, but I felt like Bryce would use this for something mundane, scratching his ass, picking up coffee. I wasn't quite feeling the other shoulder he had, so instead I sourced it from a spare Warpsmith kit. I followed his kit to the letter more or less, opting for the Volkite pistol to offset the more relaxed Hellblaster arm, and used the Ultramarines' other head kit to finish him off, making sure to carefully shave away the Ultramarine toilet bowl insignia from his forehead. He wouldn't fit in with the Iron Hands by any means, but Bryce looks very spiffy for a Techmarine.
God damn.
I took a break to get some sleep since it was 5 in the morning and I have no chance of fixing this god-awful sleep schedule. After some well-deserved rest, I sat myself down, started the day with Monger. I initially envisioned him being a Black Templar marshal. I mean, look at it. The pose, the animosity in the stance, how ready it is to beat you over the head with whatever he's swinging. But as I was prepping to start this video, FlashGitz put out an announcement saying they weren't going to sell to a network, where Hatemonger is holding a sermon, like a chaplain. Oh, and he did interrogation on the alien in the first episode.
Where's the artifact?
Oh no, he's an interrogator chaplain. Oh, he's a dark angel in ultramarine colors. Ah well, hindsight's 2020, and I've already got this figure. The Interrogator Chaplain isn't available on the Warhammer store at the time of scripting. Go figure.
I hate them.
So let's work with what we have. Starting off, I noticed that neither head on his sprue was a helmet option, which is okay. I had a spare helmet from my bits box picked out just for this sort of occasion. Some people hate Centurions, but I think they're cool. And their helmets are suitably angry for Hatemonger's kit. Otherwise, I followed the build order pretty much to the letter, opting for this sick bolt flamer pistol, because if any of the gang were going to have something like that, it was Hatemonger. The build went off without any real issues, making sure to shave away what I could of the Black Templar's heraldry from his tabard, and try and keep him free of any affiliation with the official legions. The real problem was a lack of a mace head for his
Hate mace made in the hate forges of my home planet.
which is why I ordered the Chaos Legionaries from Fantasy, to give me a spare mace head. And while this one worked well enough, it was kind of comically small, so I ended up replacing it with one of the larger ones from the kit, when all of my friends said it was stumpy. With that, the shoulder pads in place, Hatemonger was ready, if not done up in his Sunday finest. Now, on to my personal favorite of the team, Chestnut. Entirely because I really connect with characters that deal with a lot of self-loathing.
Self-hatred. I didn't know I was into that.
It was really easy to decide what I'd choose for Chestnut. It was more a question of which. I already had an Apothecary Marine, but the temptation of making him a Gravis Apothecary was there. I ultimately decided on the normal, just so he didn't outsize his friends. And there wasn't really much special to building him until I got to the helmet. Seeing as I didn't want to tap into my firstborn helmets this soon, I instead sourced a more fitting helmet from my bike chaplain, just to fit with his skull-shaped helmet. I turned his head away from the globule in his hand to emulate that haunting scene from episode 2, and brought in that reliquary from my Emperor's Champion I mentioned earlier. And for the base, there wasn't much else beyond adding the fan for the Blade Guard helmet from the Ultramarine Champion kit as a little homage to the Exsanguinator for the Coagulators. Because if I was going to have him standing on a Marine's body like that, it was going to be this jolly dude. Doing this in public is very likely to shorten your lifespan. Do not throw this gang sign out in public. It's an actual gang sign. And with these four set and ready, all that was left was to prime and paint them. With the addition of some spare Tau bits on the captain's base to swap for Hatemonger's mace head, I primed them all in white Scar, as red and yellow tend to be tough colors to paint. Red is significantly easier, but the addition of yellow on both Captain and Bryce means if they were primed in black, it turned the yellow into a green tint that would take too many layers to properly color out, and by the time you got it there, it's got its own texture. I start off with the captain, giving him a healthy coat of ball red across most of the armor, avoiding the helmet for now, intending to come back with Corvus Black for all the flexible undersuit. At the head and tabard hanging off his belt with Macragge Blue, and then the fan with Averland Sunset, Evil Sun Scarlet for the stripes, and leaving it plain white Scar for the center, giving the eyes a touch of Corax White and a tint of ball red, making sure to hit the breathing pipes with the Corvus Black and give his fan decorative bits, sword pommel, and crossguard, and shoulder trim, Retributor armor, that I'll come back through with Guilliman flesh to deepen it up. I'll come back later and give his Vox Grill a coat of Stormhost silver and a splash of a little Null Oil in there. I also give his shoulder and knee pad the Averland Sunset chevrons for his Star Defender's insignia. It's freehand, so it's a little jank. Next I come in with Fulgrim Pink and Doomfire Magenta over his Power Sword blade to try and give it that proper coloration the one in the show had. Sadly, I can't give it that glass appearance that they all have, but I can make it look pretty decent as a power sword, adding slightly more Corax White to the pink on the edges and tip of the blade. Following that, a shade of Macragge Blue over the handle, before hitting all of his special braids in Corn Red, giving his belt and holster a coat of Scrag Brown, and give it a follow-up of Gore Gruntifer. Next for his bolter, which I do like most of my other weapons, a coat of Lead Belcher before my phone started running out of space for videos, so I had to order a webcam, at which point the quality is going to fall off a bridge. I apologize for this. So if the video is really choppy, you know why. Anyway, one Amazon later and a new bookshelf put together to hold all these minis, the bolter was given a very thinned down coat of Black Legion. After that, I dropped some Night Lord's Blue on the foregrip, making sure to come back through with some Morghast Bone and Agrax Earthshade for the purity seals, and making sure to get the wax with Gal Vorbak Red and Mephiston Red, just barely grazing over the raised details. I come in and get the scope lens with some White Scar, and then go over with a coat of Temple Guard Blue. Follow that up with Corvus Black for the sling belt, Retributor armor for the reliquary hanging from his belt. After that, it's clean up on spots I missed like his crack and big grenade, done in Lead Belcher, and coat them in Black Templar. I then coat the base of the mini in a Grelin Badland and give it time to dry out for that dry, arid landscape. Next, for the Tau helmets and the shoulder plates scattered on the base, I kept it mostly White Scar, giving a few hits of Lothern Blue on the trim and Stormhost Silver in the destroyed recesses, before coming in with blood for the Blood God to messy up the helmets, and paint his base trim black. Specifically, Abaddon Black. With that, the captain is ready to get out there and crack some heads.
You should be out there, cracking heads, finding Space King. I have a deep purpose for you, my son.
Coming back to Bryce, I give him once over with Magma Draw Flame to make it easier to apply Uriel Yellow to his helmet and shoulder pad. Coming back through with White Scar for the most important details, and Troll Slayer Orange to cut back on the white trim to his helmet's little mohawk? Raised ridge on the helmet thing. Whatever you call this. After that, it's White Scar in the eyes, followed by Evil Sun Scarlet, and another little brush of White Scar to bring back the eye glow. Now for all the Corvus Black on the tubing and the undersuit, afterwards hitting all the metallics, Iron Hand Steel, Iron Warriors, Hashut Copper, and using Uriel Yellow, Evil Sun Scarlet, and Mephiston Red for the wires here and there. Wanting to get that proper pink energy from the show, I give the plasma coils a thinned down Doomfire Magenta, applying a kind of thin layer of White Scar to where the light would hit, and glazing those spots as well, before going back and giving his guns a proper wash of Black Legion, thinned down to a shade. After going over with Drakenhof Nightshade over most of the other metals, I take an old brush and give him a dry brushing of Lead Belcher. Onto the leather pouches and his holster, I go for Rhinox Hide and a coat of Wildwood. Then it's time for the base. Going over with Lead Belcher, taking care to save the dirt for the Karak Stone and the spent shell casings in Hashut Copper, before going back with Militarum Green over the Lead Belcher and a healthy dose of a Grelin Badland. Bryce was finished.
You're a good boy, and the translator device was a really great idea.
With Hate Monger, I gave him a complete go-over in Macragge Blue, which kind of begs the question why I didn't just prime him Macragge Blue. The answer to that, I didn't have any. Taking care to try and get all in the tough-to-reach spots, but some of them, like behind the tabard on the legs, went a little bare, sadly. Maybe one day I'll learn how to paint in sub-assembly, now that I got super glue. After that, I gave him a dose of Grey Knight Steel over most of the trim, his reliquary, belt buckle, his iron stockade housing, we'll call him Steve, his helmet, and the... Following that, we give Steve some attention. Morghast Bone, followed by a wash of Skeleton Horde. It was also at this point I realized the webcam I got wasn't cutting it, and it really muddied the footage. Anyway, restarting my phone, fixing the issue, and getting it back in the action to try and salvage what I can of this. Sadly, this is all after Hate Monger, so this footage is just going to be really crummy. After that, his tabard and cape got a big coat of Apothecary White and Nuln Oil, the nectar of the machine god. And giving all the leather and undersuit a coat of Corvus Black, giving his chains a coat of Lead Belcher, and a coat of Drakenhof Nightshade over all the metals and his reliquaries, making sure to give the interior a coat of Pilar Glacier before freehanding his Legion heraldry onto his shoulder. Usually I'd put the blank one on the left and the more fancy one on the right, but with his melee in his left hand, his right side will be facing the enemies more, and I like to consider that when putting models together. After the heraldry, I apply Magos Purple and Cassandora Yellow to the underbarrel flamer to give it that lovely heat warp. With some Mephiston Red over White Scar to give him his eyes, a coat of Baneblade Brown and Agrax Earthshade over the rocks, a layering of a Grelin Badland, he's ready to kill some aliens.
And I'll get you a castle made of hate where no one can question your statistics.
Now for Chestnut. With the video quality issue hopefully fixed, it was time to get the team's Medicae his coat of paint. Starting off with Apothecary White, I give his whole armor a coat and stuff. Not the most even of coats, but it adds to the character. Yeah, that's the excuse. At least it would be until I accidentally put my thumb to his shoulder while it was still wet. So that's, it's scuffing from too much dodge rolling. I also give him the Exsanguinator he's standing on a coat of Apothecary White. After I let that dry on, I give his arms and his doctor's apron two-thin coats of Cabalite Green, and careful application of Blood Angel's Red to his eyes, shoulder trim, leg decor, and his medical logo thing. A little cleanup on the gene seed, or globule in this case, with White Scar, and follow up with striking Scorpion Green, to it and all the other little canisters on his person. I make sure to give the Exsanguinator Blood Angel Red on his head crest and Stormhost Silver in the battle damage and trim. I also freehand in a very fat Legion heraldry into his shoulder in Macragge Blue, and Corvus Black in his and Chestnut's undersuit and breathing pipes. I give him some spots of Grey Knight steel on the mechanical arm joints and equipment and his small details. Giving his holster and bags a layer of Mournfang Brown, and coating it and the skull on his hip with Agrax Earthshade. His bolter once again gets Lead Belcher and, shaking things up, Rattling Grime. Honestly a much better choice than Thinned Down Black Legion if I'm honest. I'm doing this going forward, and giving his little side decals some Corn Red and Retributor armor. His lights get a coating of Cassandora and Imperial Fist, freehanding in his special heraldry on the shoulder. Really messy, but dodge rolling, yeah. Morghast Bone, Agrax Earthshade, followed by Galvorback Red and Mephiston Red for his purity seals, before giving his base some attention with Baneblade Brown, Hashut Copper, Retributor armor coated in Gilliman flesh, and after that, I gave his base a load of Agrellan Badland to let it dry, and add a frankly unhealthy dose of Blood for the Blood God all over the Exsanguinator and the dirt. Oh, and I made sure to give the Exsanguinator's peepers a little coat of Celestium Blue. After which, Chestnut was ready.
You worthless piece of shit.
And with him finished, I'd assembled the worst Reclaimer squad in the galaxy. I'm very proud of the work I've done with these four. Bright, vibrant, and I think they'd stand out fairly well if I were to run them in a Space Marines army. I do wish I were better at keeping my hands steady for the eyes and the heraldry, but otherwise, I'm very happy with how these guys came out. I'm very proud of them. And hopefully you can enjoy the process like I did. Even if it's probably really difficult to see given how choppy the footage got at some parts, because this webcam is absolute dog water. Do your research before buying anything. If you like this, maybe stick around. I do gaming, and I'm gonna try and do more of this in the future. Tune in next time where I deal with my crippling roach infestation head on.